There we go. And good evening and welcome to Serious Sleep. My name is Stewart Fleming. I'm going to be your host tonight. We're going to go through some techniques and tips and tricks on how to get some really good sleep. Now, my role tonight is to not actually put you to sleep, keep you awake long enough to give you information so that from here on in, you have techniques that can get you to sleep regularly. As a coach, I spend a lot of my time coaching businesses, and from time to time, I'll have a client that will come in and they'll break down into tears, and that happens for a number of reasons. But I guess the point of this, my question to them is not what's wrong. My first question is, how are you sleeping? Because poor sleep can lead to such massive overwhelm that the smallest thing can bring you to tears. And that's what we want to avoid. So sleeping your way to the top. This is a Australian Small Business Advisory Services webinar. This is probably the second last one I'll be doing because the program comes to an end and then they've got a new program, but that's supported by Business Station. So welcome, and there's a few more people logging in there. So if you do have questions, please put them into the chat window, and I will answer them. I want you to get as much out of this as possible. My goal would be to add the amount of sleep that you need from here till your death. I want to give you techniques that will actually get you through whatever life is going to throw at you, so that sleep is always one of the tools in your arsenal. I have gone through lots of times in my life where I didn't get sleep, and I don't need to tell you, because you're here, how bad that can be. So let's just jump straight in, and I'll set some expectations up front, some sleepy expectations. Hopefully you'll stay awake. We're going to talk about the benefits of some serious sleep, what happens when you're deprived of it, some indicators that you're doing it really well or doing it really poorly, some routines, some building blocks. Of course, we're going to need some tools, and I'm a coach, there's always homework. But, you know, where possible, you set the homework. Now, as with all of my webinars, this one is based on a lifetime of training and information, but not just from myself. I worked with a series of professionals that were working in the oncology space. And one of the things that we developed in that space, this is 2002, we developed a program called Sleep for Life. And the idea of this program, oh look, the president of the Logan Chamber of Commerce has logged in. Excellent. I'd hate to be that guy. For those watching, that's me. But I'm assuming somebody else is using my login. One of the things that we developed, this team of oncologists and myself, was this program to help patients that were going through some pretty nasty treatment get good sleep, because they recognized straight away that if you could get good quality sleep, that you would recover better from the treatment and the pretty terrible treatment. Hi, Rhiannon. You would recover better from the treatments that they were giving you. And so we developed this program, and I'm going to run through some of the things with you tonight. But as with all of my webinars, it is a little bit like drinking from the fire hydrant. The trick is to take small sips. So what I want you to do is, if you've got a pen and paper handy, is to jot down the things that appeal to you. Jot down the notes that make sense to you. And sometimes it's not even something that I've said. It's something that I have said has caused a memory in you or a thought in you, and you write that down. Now, I go to a lot of different training courses, and I will say that the majority of the time, I don't walk away with notes based on what they said. I'll walk away with notes based on ideas that occurred to me while they were talking. And maybe something they've said has inspired me or created something in me. So don't feel that you need to only work with the information that I'm giving you. If there's something more, please write it down. The idea will be at the end that you'll have a large array of notes, then you're going to prioritize them, and then you're going to create an action plan out of them, and that's going to be your homework. And if you can't come up with anything on your own, I will suggest some for you. So let's move on again. For those that just joined in, I see there's more and more people jumping in. If you've got questions, please type them into the chat window. I will definitely stop as I go through this and answer them. Let's look at some benefits of actual serious sleep. And these aren't in any real particular order, but the first one for me is better decision making. And this, you know, as a business owner, and you guys are all business owners or you wouldn't be here. As a business owner, I consider you a high performer. You're performing better than, well, at a higher level than 90% of the population. So how do I make sure that you're going to be performing well? Serious sleep, so that you can make better decisions. Now, you all know when you've had poor sleep and made poor choices. Higher emotional stability. Remember I said that if someone cries in one of my sessions, my first question is, how are you sleeping? Because if I can fix that, there will be a larger amount of emotional stability, and you get a large amount of emotional stability. And the thing that you're crying about is probably not what you need to cry about anyway. We have a maxim in coaching that the problem presented is never the problem. There's always something else. And so our job as coaches is to dig into the problem, find out what the actual problem is, and then work on that. And if you're crying, one of the first things I'll recognize is that you probably need to sleep better. More creativity. And I know we have creative people on tonight. Better sleep equals more creativity. But because I've got people on who I know are creative, I'm going to go even further. And that more sleep equals better creativity. And I don't mean by length, I mean physical sleeps. So if you want to get super creative, or I can throw the challenge out there. If you want to get super creative, don't do long sleeps, have lots and lots of small ones. 15 to 20 minutes of sleep, and wake up and write down whatever you're thinking about, and then go back to sleep and do it again and repeat, rinse and repeat. Now, this is like saying, okay, so running a marathon is just about not stopping. So just go out and do not stop. Sounds simple, really, really hard. Same with this. This takes practice. And so sleeping, don't sacrifice your big sleep to try and work out how to do this, because you'll just be tired, cranky, and irritable. But if you have the opportunity to have sleeps during the day, have short ones. See what works for you. Set your alarm. Everyone's got, you know, the black mirror. Set your alarm. 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Do it for a few times and see how you feel. I can guarantee you'll get some awesome ideas by having lots of small sleeps. So I don't usually mention that, but because I've got some special people on tonight, there you go. A little trick from me. For myself, 15 minutes, I can get it down to 7. 7 minutes is about my limit. Anything less than that, I haven't managed to hit that sleep. The bit where I'm starting to get REM sleep, I can do that in about 15. Anyway, you will all go through, you all have your own cycles, and we're going to cover that in a minute. But certainly it will help with your creativity. It will also help with productivity. You'll be able to achieve more in less time by sharpening your saw. You'll have all heard the story of the two guys that are going to go into an axe or tree felling competition. The first guy spends the first 5 minutes sharpening his axe and then beats the other guy. Spend time sharpening your saw. Spend time learning how to sleep. And you're already doing that because you're here tonight, so well done. More productivity, reduce stress. Now, I guess that sort of sits slightly with higher emotional stability, but it also means that you will be less prone to getting stress. So it'll reduce your stress by getting good sleep, good serious sleep. And the big one for me, more time in peace. So why is that the big one? I have done, I think we're now up to over 3,000 hours of coaching. And the thing that pretty much everybody wants is peace. So if you could spend more time there, That's what everybody wants. And some serious sleep will allow you to get more time there. I'm going to move on, but remember, if you've got any questions, I did see a hand go up very quickly, but it went down again. If you do have any questions, type them into the chat window. There's also a Q&A button. There should be a Q&A window there. Q&As are for everybody. Chats usually just come to me unless you change it to all panelists and attendees. All right, let's talk about some sleep deprivation. Now, again, this is almost the opposite side of the coin. Anxiety, irritability, and mood swings. I'm not tired. Yeah, we've all heard that. And the first thing you go is, yeah, they're so tired, right? Short attention span, reduced concentration. These are one of the earlier indicators for me. If I am starting to go downhill, I will notice my attention span starts to shrink. I can't focus as much. So keep an eye on which ones are for you, which are the indicators. Brain fog, low motivation, reduced reaction time. This is, the reduced reaction time is why they say, you obviously you shouldn't be driving when you're tired, because your reaction times actually reduce quite significantly. Now, obviously that's a workplace health and safety issue, just a general safety issue, driving home, but that brain fog, watch for that one, because that's coming up to you're starting to push your limits, whereas the short attention span, reduced concentration will happen earlier. Hungry. Now, that's an interesting one. I've spoken to a number of people who have the same thing. I can eat my way through sleep. What does that mean? Well, if I have in the past had deadlines where I need to do all-nighters, I can replace sleep with food. It's always rubbish food, and there's lots of it, more than I would normally eat. But for short periods, I can replace sleep with food. Wouldn't recommend it. Try not to do it. But if you do find you're eating a lot more, it may be because you haven't got enough sleep. Poor memory. Fixation, stuck on one thing. I'm stuck in a loop and I can't seem to get out of it. Good sign of sleep deprivation. And just simple mistakes. If you've got staff and they just make really simple mistakes, one of the things to look for is are there any other signs of sleep deprivation? So not any one of these things on its own, but like with all things in coaching, it is the picture as a whole. So when I read body language, you might scratch your nose. Well, if you read any book on body language, scratching your nose is a sign of lying. So when you lie, your brain secretes slightly different chemicals. And one of the side effects is you will get an itchy nose. And so if you rub your nose, you're obviously lying, except you could just have an itchy nose. So how do you tell? Well, you look for other signs. It's signs taken as a whole, the picture as a whole. Difficulties waking up. Difficulties going to sleep should be in there as well. So signs of sleep deprivation, even when you're sleep deprived, sometimes it can be super hard to go to sleep. Has that happened to anyone? Just give us a hands up. Yep. Excellent. Wow. All right. Half of you. All right. Is there anything that you think I've missed? Is there anything that for you is a sleep deprivation indicator that I haven't put up there? So while you're thinking about that and possibly typing, I will move on. If it lets me. There we go. All right, let's talk about some sleep inhibitors. One of and these ones are particularly in order. The one that I have found the most of all of the people that I've spoken about is busy brain. Can't go to sleep. Brain's still going, still firing. So busy brain is because of either anxiety, excitement, or fear. Can be all three, But remember, excitement and fear feel like the same thing anyway, so sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. So we're going to work on how to get around that. You're still plugged in. You're still thinking about the day. The day is still happening for you. A poor environment. So whether it be lots of movement, lots of action in the house, it's not quiet, it's too hot, it's too cold. What's the environment that you need? Poor diet. Now, everybody knows the coffee before bed, but there's also the opposite. So what is it that for you helps you sleep? Can you put down, if you've had a curry that night and you can't sleep, well, that might be an indicator that curries are going to keep you up at night. I know guys that have massively hot curries and sleep like babies. As they sleep like babies. That doesn't mean they're waking up every few moments and pooing themselves. They sleep well, let's just say that. Not enough exercise. A big problem for pretty much, what are we saying, 85% of the population, I think I saw the other day, are not getting enough exercise. So I'm pretty sure we can count, or pretty much all count ourselves in that, certainly myself. And one of the other ones is just overall a poor routine. What is your sleep routine? Now, when I was a young lad, my grandmother had a routine when I went and stayed at her place. And we would kneel by the foot of the bed and we would say our prayers together. Then I'd get into bed, she'd tuck me in, kiss me on the head, close the door, and then go and make noise in the kitchen. And I'm sure, even to this day, she was doing it so that I knew she was still around. Just the gentle, clinking of pots and pans. Now, maybe I'm making it up, but I certainly do remember it. And certainly when many of you already know that I was a single parent, I recreated exactly what she gave me to sleep for my son. So we would say our prayers, we would get in and kiss him on the head, and then I'd go and busy myself around the house, just doing general cleanups and stuff. Never had a problem with him going to sleep. So what is your routine? What routine do you need? And let's just jump straight into routines. First step of your routine, and if you've been on Overcoming Overwhelm, or I think it's also in Perfect Planning and Taming Time, first step is to breathe. Just breathe. Take a deep breath, a conscious breath. It's how often do we not do that? And when we do, we feel great, and then we forget we can do it. Take a deep breath in, hold, and breathe out. Now, there's a trick. So the breathing pattern that we developed, and I don't have this in the slides for a reason, the breathing pattern that I developed for the Sleep for Life program is in the pattern of 1-4-2. So write that down, 1-4-2. And so I actually wrote the software for it, and the software would, you'd run the software and you'd say, okay, go. And it would start counting, and it would say, breathe in, hold, breathe out. Now, as you can probably guess, let's see. If I breathe in for 4 seconds, how long should I be holding? Anyway, the first one with an answer gets a gold star. 8. If I breathe in for 4 and the numbers are 1-4-2, how many should I be holding for? Anybody else? 16. Well done. So the number is, so if I breathe in for 4, that is my 1, which means I would hold for 16, and breathe out for 8. Now, this does some really cool stuff. So by breathing in to your full capacity, and look, practice this with a low number, right? Breathe in quickly. 2 seconds. All right, which means I'm now going to hold for 8 seconds. 1, 2. And then I'm going to breathe out for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, the thing with this is that by holding the breath in, what the doctors were telling me was that your diaphragm is the pump for the lymphatic system. Well, it's not entirely true. The diaphragm, your breathing, is one of the larger pumps for your lymphatic system. We don't have an individual pump like we do for the circulatory system. The heart is the big pump, but for the lymph system, the toxins and the rubbish in your body gets pushed around by muscles moving. And one of the big ones is the diaphragm. So when you're holding at that high number, what you're doing is the pump is sucking the rubbish out of your system. And when you breathe out, you want to breathe out slower than you breathe in, because the pump, you want to be able to push that into your kidneys. Now, how much of that's true and how much of that is, I don't know. But these are very, very qualified guys that were telling me this. What I walked away with was 142. Now, a little aside, when I wrote the software, we had one of the ladies in the office do the voiceover. So breathe in, hold, breathe out. I thought that was very nice. She did a great job. And so I took it home and I turned it on, and the software had been set up so you could pick, you could put the number of cycles in, just type it in as a number, or you could say, you have number of cycles and a number of seconds. So, what you do is breathe in, count how many seconds that was, set that as your number, and then away it would go and count through the things. And so I was working on some code, and I put the headphones on and I breathed in and I held and I breathed out as it told me to do. And it kept ticking away. I think I put in, 10 minutes or 10 cycles. And I just went about my business. I kept working. And after a while, I felt really odd. I feel weird. What is going on? I'm looking around the room and there's something changed. The heater's changed, or what's going on? And then I realized I was not breathing in. I breathed out and she hadn't told me to breathe in. And so I breathed out. My lungs were empty and I was kind of starting to go blue. And I didn't work out what it was for a few seconds until I went, oh yeah. Next day, we added and breathed normally to the end. So there you go. It turns out I actually am a blonde. If you don't tell me to breathe, I will actually forget and pass out. 142. While we're here, we'll keep going with this particular thing. The best time to be doing it during the day. If you're only ever going to do this once, try to do 6 cycles or more. So 6 counts. And you want to do it at the polar opposite of when you're going to be in deep sleep. So most people are in deep sleep around the 2-3 a.m. mark, unless you're a shift worker, in which case, good on you. But if you're like most people, at that 2 to 3 a.m. is the time that you're the most asleep, then it's the 2 to 3 p.m. that you should be aiming to do this. Which, if you think about it, kind of matches up with that 3 p.m. flat spot in your motivation, in your energy levels. Now, if you get really keen, then do it every 6 hours. So do it 6 hours either side of that as well. And what you're doing is you're tapping into your biorhythm. So you're setting your body up to say, well, if I'm processing rubbish here, I want you to process rubbish again at 2 a.m. Does that make sense to everyone? Is there any questions on any of that? I do realize I've just used the word breathe as a big jumping off point for a whole bunch of stuff, but I did tell you it was going to be like drinking from the fire hydrant. All right. The next thing is to set it down. you're carrying, I can guarantee you're carrying too much in your head right now. And the reason I know that is because everybody does. So what can you put down for now? And so we use the process of journaling. Now, this is different to journaling, sorry. So this is bookmarking. Journaling for me is very specific. Journaling is vomiting onto paper. You are not allowed to edit anything. Whereas setting it down is bookmarking. I want you to put down everything that you're thinking about right now so that you can pick it up later. So if you need to remember something, write it down. Now, the only way that this really works is that if you have an agreement with yourself to pick it up and do it later. If I said to you, if you give me that task, I'll get it done, and I don't do it, how many times will you keep giving me stuff before you go, I don't actually trust that guy? The same process happens for yourself. If you keep telling yourself you're going to do something and you don't do it, your current self will not trust your future self, and therefore it will keep going round in your brain because I don't believe you will pick it up. And this is where that routine comes in really handy. If every morning you pick up where you left off yesterday and it's written down, that means you don't have to carry it around and you don't have to carry it through sleep. As a general piece of advice, if you find that you are still lying down and it's still running through your brain and you've already written it down, it may be, and it may be that you don't trust yourself, but it also may be the other cause is because you haven't written it in enough detail. And I guess there's a bit of not trusting yourself, because if you didn't write it in enough detail, will you be able to pick it up? With bookmarking, you will start by being quite verbose. That means you will write a lot. And over time, you will write less and less. Now, I have 4 businesses. I serve on 2 boards and I run 3 charities. So try and work that out in your head. How do I get all of that done? I only pick up what I need to. If you meet me at a function and you look in one ear, you should be able to see the other side. Literally, it's straight through up here, right? Because I've put everything down. It's where it needs to be, and I pick it up when I need to. If I had to put all of that in my head all at once, I'd go doolally. So set it down. Create a routine to make sure that you pick it up again, right? Also set your environment at this point. Do your breathing. Write down what your routine should be. Until you've got it settled into your head, write it down. When should you have the last coffee? What should you be eating? I do say it an awful lot, and you've probably, I think quite a few of you have been on webinars with me before, so you've probably heard it before. But if it's important, you measure it. How much sleep are you getting and what was the quality? Everything, if it's important, measure it. Doesn't mean you have to measure it forever. But if it's important, measure it. You can't improve it if you're not measuring it. So write it all down. Get everything out of your head. And this doesn't just apply to sleeping. It applies to the whole day. Get it out of your head. Be nice to yourself. Don't make yourself carry around lots and lots of stuff. There's that adage that just because you can doesn't mean you should. So just because you can carry stuff around in your head doesn't mean you should. And certainly in terms of multitasking, don't. Just don't. All right? I can and I won't. I don't want you to get better at multitasking. I want you to stop doing it altogether and do one thing really, really well. And then measure your results. I bet you're more productive. Measure your results for sleep. And if you're keen, try the short sleeps. As I say, don't sacrifice your big sleep for short sleeps. But if you have a look at the sleep patterns of the great inventors, you'll see that a lot of them took micro naps, lots of them. Edison, I think he slept 12 different times in the day. So have a think about what's going to work for you. And that's really what this is tonight's about. It's not about the techniques that I have that work for me. It's about what works for you. I mean, there's some really cool stuff like brain expansion. That's a cool technique, but I'm not going to cover that tonight. But if you find that you still can't sleep after all of that, all of this, email me and we'll go through more stuff. Use the tools when necessary. If you find that you're sleeping well and you don't need to put more stuff down, stop it. You don't need it. But if you find that you stop doing that and your sleep starts to degrade again, then pick it back up again. We're going to cover tools in a bit, so you'll get a little bit more about that. But my philosophy on tools is use them when they make sense and only then. So your routines. Hopefully I've started to give you some ideas around a routine that can help you sleep. And measure it. If the routine doesn't work, change it. You're in charge of your life. You're in charge of your sleep. Let's look at some building blocks for serious sleep. Again, as I said, any questions, throw them in the chat window. First one, understand your own cycle. So are you at the moment, and I'm saying at the moment because I believe everybody can be everything. One of my biggest banes is personality tests. Don't get me started on that one. But firstly, understand what your current cycle is. Are you currently more productive in the morning, or are you currently more productive in the evening? You could be both. But which one is stronger for now? Understand when you're going to sleep. Are you can you drop off like a log, or are you do you take longer to get to sleep? And I've got techniques around getting to sleep faster too. Be prepared. If you find that bookmarking works for you, make sure that whatever you're going to look at in the morning is next to the bed and you've got it there and you're ready. If you want to get up and go exercise in the morning, make sure your clothes are ready so you don't have to think about it. It's one less thing you've got to think about. Take things out of your brain, whatever you can. It truly is one of the most remarkable techniques. Just the fact that we have big brains doesn't mean that we should be cluttering them up with stuff. Create your own environment. So create the environment that works for you. Now, I'd love you to get to a point where you could sleep in a daycare center just after a red cordial hour, right? You know what I mean, right? Some of those voices get so high. Now, if you can sleep in that environment, you're a champion sleeper. Anyone can do it when it's easy. I want you to start to think about how to do it when it's harder. And what that will do will start to show you your preferred and better styles of sleep. Treat it like a great experiment. But if you get this right, if you actually work out the factors are that help you sleep, you will sleep well for the rest of your life. And it's a great gift. It's a gift for yourself. Those around you will almost never see you anxious or irritable because you're well rested. Your health, much better because you're well rested. Some building blocks, again, put stuff down. We've already covered that a bunch of times. Measure your results. Just keep saying it. Measure what you're doing. If you want to get better at something, make sure you're measuring it. All right, are there any questions on any of that? Have I bamboozled you? Is it all pretty basic stuff and you want more? You want me to go a bit more hardcore? You tell me. I serve you tonight, not the other way around. All right, I'll jump forward. If it lets me. Oh, some tools. Yeah, this is the time everybody pulls out their pen and paper. Have a look at your environment. So, is temperature a factor for you? For myself, hot feet. If you've got jumpy feet, there's a technique for getting rid of that. If you have a large amount of adrenaline in your system, say something particular has happened and you have a large amount of adrenaline in your system, one of the things you can do, one of the fastest ways of getting rid of the adrenaline is the hot cold shower. And what that is to jump into the shower and turn the heat up till it's bearable but really hot. And I want you to, and the process is that you turn. So different parts of your body are getting that heat, and keep moving and keep turning till you're quite hot, right? I want you to get really quite hot. Now, the next step is, depending on how brave you are, turn the hot off and just keep turning. Certainly this time of year, it's brisk. I can tell you that much. I do it every morning. So go cold. Then you'll probably get one revolution before you go, I'm seriously cold already. Turn the hot back to where it was. You'll probably get 3 to 4 revolutions to heat up again and repeat. So your skin is the biggest organ you have. And what you're doing is you're forcing the blood to, or you're forcing your skin to basically press all of the blood out of the capillaries and basically protect yourself from the cold, and then open it all back up again for the heat. What you'll find if you do this is you feel your skin doing this. You'll actually feel it breathe. Now, you do that 3 or 4 times, when you get out of the shower, you're going to be exhausted. Because what's happened is, in order to force that skin to do all of that, it's used up a lot of adrenaline. A smaller way is just to do squats. You're not going to use anywhere near as much, and it's not as much fun to explain. But the hot cold shower, 100%, that thing's going to wear you out. But you know, a little bit of exercise would do the same thing. You know, a 5-minute walk is going to help you take the edge, I'll say, off the adrenaline, as opposed to the hot cold shower, which is going to pull it out of you screaming. Rihanna's just said that a good cry will also help get rid of cortisol. Nice. If you can cry on command and you can get the right kind of crying, go nuts. I'm going to be watching you at the next meeting if you start crying on command. All right, bookmarking. So we talked briefly about that. So bookmarking is putting down where you are at any point in time. And it turns out that bookmarking is awesome for the end of the day. It's also awesome for weekends. It's also awesome for holidays. Get good at it. It's great for interruptions. Bookmark. Where are you up to right now? If you can put a mark in your brain and write down exactly where your brain is at, what was the very next thing you were about to do, and where are you currently at? Now, the more complicated the task, the longer the bookmark is going to be. You're going to write a larger bookmark. And just like we said before, when we were talking about setting it down in the evening, you will start by being more verbose, and over time you will reduce that down to something that is much more succinct, because you'll start to see what your brain needs to pick things up. But to start with, to make it work, be verbose, write down more. Bookmarking is one of those fabulous ways of getting around interruptions, of leaving the office in the office, of walking away and getting stuff and certainly getting a lot more done. With a good bookmarking skill behind you, you will not be afraid of taking on extra large jobs with small amounts of time, because you can bookmark and carry on. It means that your time can be layered. So rather than take on a 4-hour task only when there's 4 hours available, you could take it on when there's 15 minutes available and get started, because your bookmark at the end of the 15 minutes, if you do it well, it means you won't have to lose time. Now, there is always a factor of retooling when you change tasks. I had a coaching session today with one of my clients I'm working with quite a while, and we were talking about the idea that what's the ideal amount of time so that you don't spend too long bookmarking or retooling your brain. So if you did 25 things in an hour, that's a lot of retooling. But if you did 2 things in an hour, you can see the difference, can't you? So doing lots of little tasks has a cost in your brain. Now, I don't think I cover this. No, so I'm going to do it here. This is kind of cool. So it turns out that if you think about lots of small tasks as one big task, there's less retooling involved. That's a little trick. You can trick your brain. That's a brain hack. Stu's first brain hack. I'm probably not. I've got a lot of them, but let's call it one. So what that means is if you've got a lot of little tasks and you can wrap that up into one task and just label it as one task, your brain will be able to hold it in better. So if you have, I don't know, let's say that you're completely mad. Let's say that you are running 4 different businesses, that you are on the board of 2 others, you're running 3 charities. Let's say you're that kind of mad. What if there was only one thing that you were doing? Would that be easier? Or is it easier to do 6, 7, 8, 9, 7, 8 things? Is it easier to do that? Or is it easier to do one thing? Obviously one thing. So just do the one thing. The trick is to label the one thing. But this absolutely works, and take it from me. If you can label big stuff into lots of small stuff into a big stuff, it will be easier on your brain and you will get more done. You'll actually be more productive. Bookmarking. Routine. Your breathing cycles. Resting. If you get a chance, try a sleep at the 3 o'clock mark, or the 2:30 mark. So having a look at what is the routine that's going to work for you. Excellent. One of the comments, if you have the attention span of a pinball machine, like me, then doing one thing with hyperfixation and bouncing to the next when that gets exhausting is something that bookmarking is great for, and it really is. That idea that you do it until you need to stop and then bookmark where you're at. It's so important, and I see so few people do it. I've got lawyers that can concentrate for 4, 6, 8 hours at a time. I think they're freaks. But if they get interrupted, they would just look at the interruption and deal with it rather than bookmark first. It's the bookmarking first that gets you over the retooling. And a good bookmarking process will allow you to take on a lot more and be more productive in those things. Journaling. Now, if you find that things are really getting on top of you, this is one of those techniques. Any tips for if your partner snores to help with sleeping? Yeah, headphones can help. Working out when they start to snore, trying to get into bed and be asleep before they get there has worked in the past. Eucalyptus and a bit of losing weight can always help if your partner is a bit heavy. Eucalyptus and see a doctor. Sleeping on the side, changing the pillows. Pillows make a big difference in snoring from what we've seen. All right, journaling. So journaling, another cool tool. This one is really, really simple to explain and much harder to do in practice. It's like juggling chainsaws. Easy to say, much harder to do. So the rules where I teach it are to date the top of the page and to write without editing. You must do it with pen and paper. I would suggest that you get a nice book to do it in, something that's it's only for you, only you're going to go and see it. And you have to write every single thought. If you think, I don't even know why I'm doing this, then you have to write, I don't even know why I'm doing this. If you have to say, my hand is cramping up, you write, my hand is cramping up. And I have a number of journals where it says, my hand is cramping. the point of this is to slow your brain down to the speed of your pen. Now, if you're thinking fuck, because life has just dealt you a pretty bad hand for now, then you must write fuck until your brain is ready to move on. If you're thinking it, you write it. The reason I know about this is that I have a page of them. And you have to be pretty bloody minded to write an entire page, or things have to be pretty damn bad. So it was around the time I became a single parent. There was a lot of that going on. And it took me a page to get that out. The point is, had I not got it out that way, how long do you think it would have taken me to work that out without that process? How long was I going to be carrying those around inside me until I managed to get them out? And so let's go back to just normal writing. Let's not just write swear words. Normal writing, your brain will want to move on. You may write something 2 times or 3 times or 4 times, but your brain gets sick of writing it and it forces it to move on. The sheer act of writing it will force it to move on. And it's a great way of just dumping a busy brain onto paper. So as I say, the first few times you do this, you'll find that you are thinking and not writing. That happens a lot. Just pick up where you left off and start writing again. Whatever you're thinking about, start again. But you will find that the pen stops and the brain keeps going. That's part of the process, but you'll get better at it. If you stick with it, this is a fantastic thing to carry around with you. It's a great tool to have at your disposal. And can I suggest that you don't always just write when it's bad? Sometimes write when it's good. It's nice. As you can tell, there's been some dark times for myself, and I've got some pretty dark entries, but I've got some good ones too. So that's journaling. Great tool, really simple, slightly harder to master. What else have we got in the tools? Breathing exercises, 1, 4, 2. Who's going to try that? Throw a hand up if you're going to try that. Yep, we got 1. Come on, we got more than that. Who's going to have a go at doing the 1, 4, 2? And the question I would say is, have you been doing it while I've been talking? Now, it's a little hard for me to do it because, well, I'd have to hold my breath and you'd kind of know I wasn't talking. But it is something you can do whenever you get the opportunity. And in fact, when I wrote the program, or when the doctors and I wrote the program, at that stage I had a fairly large creative team, and we were doing websites for Atari and Blockbuster. Remember when Blockbuster was a thing, and all sorts of big companies, and the guys just basically did it all day long. They loved it. They just felt so good. So 1, 4, 2, do your breathing exercises, and just keep an eye on your adrenaline. Exercise where you can, showers if you must, squats is somewhere in between. Squats are one of those ones that I teach when we're talking about presenting, to go on stage, nip into the bathroom and do a couple of squats. Your quads will chew up quite a bit of adrenaline and it'll just take the edge off. It's nowhere near as good as the shower, but it certainly will take the edge off. All right, any questions on any of that? So hopefully by now you've got some ideas that you've been furiously scribbling away. So what I want you to do now is I want you to go back through those and put a ring around the ones that have actions. What are the actions that you want to do? So as I say, when I walk away from a workshop, I will always have actions, things that I want to do, and then you're going to guess what the next step is, right? It's pretty obvious. You're going to prioritize them. If you could only pick one, what would you do? We've got a comment, used the squats for presenting and it helped heaps. Thank you, you're very welcome. Where you can't do squats, my wife uses the wall push-up. Same kind of thing. The idea is you're going to use as much as you can a large muscle group to help take the edge off. So by now, hopefully you've got some actions and hopefully some priorities. Now, what's the one thing? What's the one thing you're going to take away from tonight that is going to change the way you sleep? Now, keep the other tools in your bag. That doesn't mean you don't need to go and do the journaling or bookmarking or the breathing technique. But what is the first thing? What is the one that you think is going to make the most difference to you? Maybe you're already a pretty good sleeper and yeah, going to start napping. Yay. I have given you permission to nap. Excellent. Napping is awesome, but don't just nap like a beginner. Measure it. Nap like an expert. If you're going to nap, do it properly. It's really cool. Isn't that bizarre? I can't even hearing myself say that, nap like an expert. That sounds odd. So start napping. Excellent. So use the tools that work for you when you need them. Now, I have a huge array of tools, but I only use a few a lot of the time. The rest are there when the wheels get turned and I'm not looking. Bookmarking, excellent. Bookmarking, I have been practicing for years. Which would I sacrifice, sleeping or bookmarking? Well, if you're journaling or bookmarking, journaling is a way of settling your brain. Bookmarking is a way of getting more done. I don't know that I'd want to sacrifice either of those two, but certainly bookmarking. And be verbose. Write down lots when you start to do it. How quickly, on a scale of 1 to 10, can you pick things up again based on that current bookmark? Give yourself a score each time. Maybe it's simple as that, until you find that you're good at it, and then you don't need to mark that anymore. The whole scale of 1 to 10, I do see there's a couple of people that I've not seen before. The scale of 1 to 10 that I use can be used on almost anything. In fact, I've not found something you can't use it on. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is terrible and 10 is you're already the grand guru of this, where would you be? I'd be a 5. Fantastic. You're halfway there. What would it take to get you to a 6? What does a 7 look like? If you're a 7, how can we get you to an 8? It doesn't matter what that looks like. What it matters is that you can see what it looks like. That you do not need empirical scales to measure stuff. Measure everything. If it's going to serve you, measure it. How good are you at bookmarking? Measure it to start with. And where do you want it to be? Do you need to be a 10 out of 10 on sleeping? Can you sleep standing up? Done that before. I was very tired. I was working 4 different jobs. I was quite young. I was quite fit, and finished one of my shifts. And my girlfriend at the time wanted me to go shopping. I fell asleep standing up in the corner of the shop. I actually had a dream. Don't recommend it. But do you need to be that good at sleeping? I'm not entirely sure I was that good. I just think I was that tired, to be honest. But do you want to be able to lie down in any space and go to sleep when needed? Because that's a great skill. It really is. I remember reading a history book that talked about the fact that one of the things with the Roman soldiers is they could sleep anywhere. And so while other armies would have to, find really big camps and set up camps, the Romans could actually sleep on the road, lie down, go to sleep. They were asleep. Get up, start running again. And I thought, that's a great skill. I'd love to have that. And so I worked at all sorts of techniques to be able to go to sleep really quickly. How good do you need to be? I'm going to finish a little early tonight, which is a nice thing. So you can get to go and practice a bit, but I'm quite happy to stay and answer questions. I have 2 more webinars coming up. And if you register for these, you'll get the recording even if you can't make it. So I would recommend you do that. I'm going to stop the recording here. but I will continue to hang around and answer questions. This has been a ASBAS Digital Solutions webinar sponsored by the federal government, the Australian Government Initiative, Regional Development Australia, and Business Station.